for that is because it's being recorded now. It better be a good joke. Um, the idea is that when you start with something funny, then it basically brings out, he lets people's guard down. That's what he says, and then people are able to actually listen to what you have to say. So, since we're talking about anti-Semitism, I'm going to connect that with a short story, and it's the story of this man who lived in Russia about 250 years ago. And so this man was a Jewish man, and of course we know how. Oh, I see we have a few alumni over here that joined in. Eric and Alex, welcome, welcome. And this man is basically opening up a very different kind of store because over there, as you remember, Jews were not allowed to practice a normal job. They were only allowed to have certain jobs. So, for example, being a doctor was not one of them. They were only able to work mostly with people in their own neighborhoods, and it was very limited the way they would make money. So this man had an idea, and he says he's gonna be some kind of therapist, with Chinese medicine and herbs and all kind of things, but not a doctor. And in order to get customers, he basically put a very big sign in his front door, and it says, "If I'm able to cure you, you pay me 100 rubles. But if I'm not able to cure you, then you have to pay me 500 rubles." And so, of course, there were a lot of people who decided, oh, let's take advantage of this Jewish man. We're just going to pretend to have something, and we're just going to go and say, oh, you didn't cure me. So there's this very particular individual that always used to cause problem to the Jewish community in those days in Russia. And he goes over there and he talks. This man was Yankel, that was his name. He talks to Yankel, say, Yankel, I see your sign outside, you're gonna pay 500 rubles. And Yankel says, that's only if I can cure you. And he says, oh, well, that's great, because I had something happen last night, and I don't know what it is, but I can't taste anything anymore. I can't taste. And so Yankel says, really? And he sees that this guy is just trying to play a trick on him. So he says, you know what? Don't worry. If I can't cure you, I'll give you 500 rubles. Now, if I can, then you'll pay me 100. So he says, sure, no problem. So here he goes, and he tells his assistant, he says, go back to the back room. On the third shelf on top, there's a little bottle with number 41 on it. So 41, the little bottle, please bring it to me. And I think that's going to cure this gentleman's problem. So this gentleman is sitting and he's waiting, and then they bring him, he takes the bottle, he opens it up, pours it into a little spoon, and he says, you drink this and you'll be cured. And so the guy takes the spoon, puts it in his mouth, and he spits it out. He says, this is gasoline. What did you give me? This is terrible. So Yankel say, oh, you could taste that's gasoline. You are cured. So the guy is so upset. He pays 100 rubles. He says, I'm going to get him back. Next day he comes back. He says, your medicine you gave me yesterday, I can't hear anything anymore. I'm completely deaf. I can't hear anything. I can't do anything. Like you ruined me. So now you're going to have to pay me 500 rubles. And Yankel is writing down. He's saying, oh, I'm sorry, but I can cure you. So he says, you could cure me? How can you cure me? And so Yankel said, just wait over here. He writes it down. He said, just wait over here. And he calls out to his assistant. He says, assistant, please go back to my office in the back. On this time on the third shelf, bottle 41, brings it to me. And so the gentleman who's sitting down says, hey, that's the gasoline you gave me yesterday. So Yankel says, you heard me. You heard me. You're cured.
That's good one.
The next day is coming back. It's not over. This is how smart you have to be in those days.
Give up.
The next day he comes back. He says, at least let me get one time. Let me get through this one time. And he goes back and he says, now it's over. You know what? I'm completely blind. I can't see anything. Your medication has completely ruined me. You caused me problem. Please give me 500 rubles. And he says, you really can't see? He says, yes, look, somebody had to come and help me get in. I can't see anything. So So Yankel says, you know what? Actually, I can't fix that. That's something that I don't know how to fix. So I'm gonna give you 500 rubles. And he takes out his wallet and he starts giving him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and he gives it to him and he says, "That's you won. You I can't fix you." And so the guy takes a look. He says, "Hey, you give me 5 ruble. That's not 500 ruble." And so he say, "Oh, you could see. Now you are cured." And so in those days, you had to be really, really smart, and you had to be, you had to basically try to survive. It wasn't very, very easy. So when we talk about, so today we're going to be talking about a little bit about the state of anti-Semitism in America today. We're going to discuss also how is it relevant to everyone in our own life. How are we supposed to not only survive but be proud to be Jewish. One of the issues that we've had, here at San Diego State, as I don't know if Faribat shared with you guys, but we had a few incidents of anti-Semitism here, tearing down our menorah, people stealing some pictures from the Chabad house, as well as online, people from San Diego State University, students who basically, uh, called us out, with very, very anti-Semitic Semitic language. And so, sometimes the response is we need to be strong, we need to be together. Most of the time, people have come to support us, and because it means supporting us means supporting their Jewish community and supporting each other. But a lot of people say it also, how can we go out and wear a Star David? I'm afraid I'm gonna be judged, or I'm gonna be, people are gonna, some people have used the word I'm feel inferior. I feel ashamed, and that's something that unfortunately brings great pain to me as a rabbi, because I don't know if most of you know who are here. I grew up in France, in Paris, and one of the reasons I came to America was because there were too much anti-Semitism in France. Wearing a yarmulke as a kid, I have been attacked many, many times with knife and glass bottle and beat up just for wearing my yarmulke. And so I decided I didn't want to raise a family there, and I wanted to come here. And seeing that there is anti-Semitism happening around this community here, is one thing, but we also know that it's happening not only here in San Diego but all over. And so I want to start sharing my screen, because what I want to do is I want to review exactly a little bit of what is the state of anti-Semitism in America. Then I want to connect it to historical anti-Semitism, to look at the timeline. A lot of people don't know how much anti-Semitism has existed in history. And of course, since I'm a Chabad rabbi, we always want to focus on the positive. So we always want to see, well, if there is such evil, where is the good? And how much good actually exists? Are there two forces here fighting each other? And how can we be a part of the positive, the good side? So I'm going to share my screen, and let's see. Yes, I could share my screen. Let's see. No, 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Give me a minute. Okay. All right. So back here. Okay. All right. Can everyone see my screen? Everyone see my screen or no?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So this is the ADL website. The ADL basically keeps statistic on anti-Semitism throughout the world. So now anti-Semitism is something that is defined as they have a few questions that they ask. So those are the questions they ask people. Are Jews more loyal to Israel and to this country? So they have, let's see, they have interviewed already, they have asked, I think, 1 billion people. And this is the results that they have had. So 1 billion is a lot of people. 1 billion is 90 million. So these are the questions that they ask. Let's see the survey's questions. Oops. I clicked the wrong thing here. We want the most recent. Okay, the questions are like this. Does Jews are more loyal to Israel than to the country they live in? So 41%. And if you expand, you could see the age of people. This is a great website if you want to learn more about the state of anti-Semitism. The other question is, does Jews have too much power in the business world? What does that mean, having too much power? It's about, succeeding. It's not about whether Jews have power. Some people are successful, some people are not. So if people think that they have too much power, that's considered anti-Semitic. Does Jews have too much power in international financial market? Jews still talks too much about what happened in the Holocaust. So out of a billion, 30%, does Jews don't care what happened to anyone but their own kind? 33%. That is very, very shocking. And does Jews have too much control of a global affair? Jews have too much control over the United States government. Jews think they are better than other people. Jews have too much control over global media. And of course, this is straight out of Hitler's propaganda, Jews and the media, and the propaganda that he used to run in Germany. Jews are responsible for most of the world's war. People hate the Jews because of the way Jews behave, and that's 32%. So now this is just the global index. Now, if we go to country selection, you could actually go into different countries. And of course, in Muslim countries, it's going to be higher because of what's happening with Israel. But if we go to America, for example, to the USA, we'll still see that about 10% of the population, which is 21 million of the population, is harbor anti-Semitic attitude. So 9%, almost 10%. And the questions, and I'm going to move this so I could click here. And the questions are the same. Are Jews more loyal? Jews have too much power. Jews have too much power in international market. So this is 15%. It's higher than the average because there's some question which is lower. For example, Jews are responsible for most of the world's war. But in general, you could see the averages of here, they're very, very high. So when we look at this, and when you go here, you could look at other places. You could look at, for example, another country, Canada, which is not far from us, and Canada is higher. These answers, are here. You could see Christian and atheist or none, their age. So that's very, very scary in a way. 14% is. And let's see Western Europe, so a country like France, since I'm French, let's see how they fare. And you look over here, this is France, and this is maybe why I came to America, but 37%. So 37% is an incredibly huge number when you see that, there, of course, there is 10% of the population is Muslim, but there's also a large part of the country that voted for Le Pen, who is neo-Nazi. So you see all these answers over here, and it makes you wonder: do you really want your kids to grow up in this country? So let's go to maybe a better country. Maybe it's England, and let's see. I actually haven't looked what England is in the results, and England is much better. So maybe England is a better place to go. But as you go through this, you realize that this is actually a real problem, a real issue. Now, I want to go to here, to the AGC. So the AGC also runs this similar questions. And this is questions that have been asked in 2020, the state of anti-Semitism in America. And this is comparing the answers that American Jews answers versus the general public. So Javier, how much of a problem, if at all, do you think anti-Semitism is in the United States today? So if you look at the answers, American Jews says 88% it's a problem, 11% not, and the general public 62%. Over the past 5 years, do you think anti-Semitism has increased somewhat, or decreased? So what is the answers? Increased is for Jews, American Jews, 82%. and 43%. So it means it gives us the indication that people don't really stay up to date with what's happening. They might know it's a problem, but they think it might stay the same. While we think, 50% more or 100% more, we think that it is a problem. Have you been the target of anti-Semitism? So American Jews, yes, and no, not a target. General public, have you witnessed or have you seen? 12%. So again, there is a a big difference between what we perceive, the extent of anti-Semitism in America versus what others. And we can go through all this, and I'll be sharing these, on the chat a little bit later, so that we can get an idea onto you could get an idea, and you could search up, exactly what is the state. Is it something real? Is it in our head? Do we really play the victim? Is it really happening? Well, if you haven't seen it, then it doesn't exist, and a lot of time we might not have experienced it ourselves, but and we might only read about the big events or the big thing that makes it to the newspaper, unfortunately. But we know it's happening. It's happening everywhere. It's happening in different communities, and it doesn't matter if you're a Sephardic Jew, an Ashkenazi Jew, if you're brown, like for Rabbi and I, or if you're white, like a Ashkenazi, like my wife. A Jew is a Jew, and unfortunately, we see all this kind of things, and the worry is like this: is it rising? Is there more? Because if it is, and it keeps on rising year after year, then even though we're not comparing at all what's happened in the Holocaust to what's happening today, but it's something that we should be worried about, because if it's rising, that means it's getting worse and worse. And so when we think of our children and grandchildren and great grandchildren, we want the future of Jews to be safe, to prosper, to be able to be Jewish, to wear yarmulke, to wear your Star David, to wave a flag of Israel without worrying that you're going to be basically targeted. And I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but we had an anti-Semitic act, and then in front of my house in the past 2 weeks, our tires were slashed. So who knows if it's connected because we're Jewish and openly Jewish or not? But 2 times in the past 2 weeks, twice. One tire 2 weeks ago, and then just Friday. So who knows? I was walking with my son also a month ago to synagogue, and obviously we were yarmulke, and a car stopped by and starts yelling, "I hate your." I'm not going to say the word Jews. And my son is 12, and he was asking me, "What is this? What is this? Why are they saying all that?" And I was saying they're coward, and they're trying to get a reaction, and we're not going to give them a reaction. We're just going to ignore them. But it's happening, and the more visibly Jewish you are, of course, the more you're going to experience that. So what should our answer be? Should we put on a cap? Should we hide the Star of David and make sure nobody sees that we're Jewish? Or should we do the opposite? Should we basically play it safe, be more quiet, or when things are happening in Israel and people are talking and saying, "Oh, Israel is terrible," or they're reading an article and they identify you as the spokesperson for Israel, should we be quiet? Should we embrace our Judaism? What should our attitude be? So I'm going to continue. I'm going to close this for a second, and then I'm going to start again in a minute or two. My mentor, the Lubavitcher Rabbi, told us something very, very powerful. Something so powerful that it really affected me as a leader, as a rabbi, to the point where I decided to do what I'm doing. The Rabbi was asked one time. He was asked, "Is celebrating one's birthday important? Is celebrating somebody's birthday important, or is just another way to throw a party and to have a good time?" And the Rebbe answered, he says, "Your birthday is a very important day to celebrate, because your birthday is the day God decided that the world simply cannot go on without you in it." And that was so powerful to me, because it really answered a very big question about meaning and purpose. What are we doing in this world? Why do we exist? Why are we always in search for meaning? Why do we always want to try to do good, to be good, to give, to do something better around us, to make the world better around us? Why do we always have this urge to search and to want to know and learn, and want to make things better around us? And when the Rebbe answered this, he basically answered me the question: the whole purpose of existence is so that you have an impact in the world because the world needs you. And in this society where we live, where basically everywhere you look, you see, oh, this person is a star. This person has 10,000 followers on Instagram or on social media, or this person is in the movies, or this person has a big business. He is the star. He is a successful person. What does that makes everyone else feel? Makes everyone else feel like, oh, I'm not good enough because I'm not there. But the Jewish way of thinking is telling us no. Every single person matters. Every single person is a hero. Every single person is supposed to think of himself as important. And when I say important, not from an arrogant perspective, but I have to find why I exist. And then when I find why I exist, my goal is not to just go through life without hurting anybody, without making any difference. My goal is to go through life and finding out how can I make an impact. And so when you make an impact, when you are willing to create change, of course you're going to have a lot of hardships. Of course you are going to go against people who don't want to hear what you have to say, because if you want to do change, then a lot of people who have been going the same way are going to fight it. And so really to embrace one's purpose means to actually go against the grain and to try to make a difference, to try to do something to change the direction of the world. And if you look at the Ten Commandments when they were given 3,000 years ago, it's incredible the change that has happened in the world. When the world, and it's not perfect, of course, and we still have a lot to grow and to change. But when you look at the world the way it was basically led by tyrant and kings and people, basically dictators throughout history. And now it's a more democratic system where we are trying to push our values onto the world. You see that those values that we call Judeo-Christian values are value that comes from the Torah, the Ten Commandments, to be a mensch, to be a good human being. And so our goal is to continue in that directions. It basically comes down to two way of thinking. There's two separate way of thinking in the world. And I'm generalizing, but it's really just two main category. There's the way that is not the Torah way, not the Jewish way, but it's called survival of the fittest. And basically what it tells us is that it doesn't matter. There is no values in the world. The only value that exists that should be that should matter to you is that you get to the top. And it doesn't matter how you get to the top. As long as you get to the top, that's all that matters. So if you have to kill, to steal, to lie, to cheat, any kind of thing you want to do, as long as you don't get caught, then it doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong. There's the only right there is you become successful, and the wrong is you're not successful. And when you think with that mentality, you're basically saying it doesn't matter if values don't matter, morals don't matter. I'm just an animal in the jungle, and I want to be the lion. I want to be the king, and I want to get to the top, and it doesn't matter how I get there. And a lot of people are brought up with this mentality. A lot of people are brought up where Shenzu, and the art of war, the idea that business is like a war and we must fight each other and we must, take advantage of each other. And this is just the way business is done. And, we make all kind of excuse sometime on, how our life should be. Well, I'm a Jew in the synagogue, but then outside, it's business and I need to be tough and I can't be, I need to be strong and I need to do whatever is best for the company. And even in general, countries do the same thing. It's whatever is good for the country, the interest of America. It doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. I'm not saying America in particular, but I'm saying this mentality exists in so many different ways. And if we were to look into our life and to make an accounting on how our life is how do we run our life? We would have to look, are we running our life everywhere in the same way, with honor, dignity, and morals, or is there some area that we could improve? The other way of thinking is meaning and purpose, meaning that I have to play the role that I was assigned to when I was born into this world. I have to live this world and say the world was better because I existed. The world was better because I came into it and changed it. And even if it doesn't mean that you're going to be changing the entire world, but no one knows the repercussion of one's action. So therefore, as long as every single day you ask yourself, what have I done to go out of my comfort zone to change the world for the better? And you go and search for those opportunities that are presented to you out there, that are there for you to engage, that are made specifically for you, and you look for those opportunities and you grab them and use them, then every single day at the end of your life you will have made a difference. And it would mean that you fulfilled your purpose, and that's the only way to truly be happy. The only way to truly be happy is to actually feel your purpose, and because then your life has meaning, and not just meaningful to you, but it has meaning for the world. And I always tell people, it's almost like a funnel. Does the funnel, goes this way or it goes this way? Are you taking and taking and taking and taking for you, or are you giving and giving and trying to influence? I tell students, I don't know if Ashley ever heard me say this, but I tell students, I say, you could go and take $500,000, and you could go and spend it on yourself by going all over the world to amazing retreats, to India and Thailand and Africa and Europe, and you learn and you spend time with people, and you have a complete different view of the world. And you do this for 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it takes, and you come back and you're a completely different person. And of course, your perspective on life is very, very different. But I say to people, I say, if you take this $500,000, which is a huge amount of money, and you give it to a complete stranger, you will be much better off. And so, of course, people say, Rabbi, okay, that sounds good in theory, and you're crazy, basically. Um, and I say, yes, it is crazy. But not only is it crazy, most people do that. And so they say, most people do that? What are you talking about? I say, look at Fariba. Did she know who Ashley was before Ashley was born? No, it's a complete stranger. How much money does it take to raise a child? How much is college tuition? How much is the diapers? How much is the clothes? How much is a down payment on a house that you're going to help? Ashley's like, oh, I didn't know my mom was going to help me with down payment. How much is throughout life, you give and you give to your children. And so you're like a funnel that goes like this, because of course we know teenagers' years are not very easy. How much do you actually get back? Not very much. Sometimes a little bit of speck of happiness here and there. But in general, you're basically giving and giving and giving and giving. And what you learn from giving and what you get from having a child and see them succeed and see them being a positive force in the world is more than any money you could spend on yourself. Whether you go all over the world and learn from the smartest rabbi or the smartest guru or whatever it is, there is so much good on having a child. And so, and it's the idea that it's counterintuitive. It's giving is counterintuitive. You give your time, you give your money, you give your all your heart and your mind to someone else, to help someone else, and somehow it makes you more happy, more fulfilled. And in a way, it's a small miracle, and that's what differentiates us Jews, the Jewish mentality of purpose and meaning versus the mentality of survival of the fittest. So I'm going to share my screen again, because and before I share my screen, I want to say one of the biggest compliments that we've ever received was from sometime you hear this biggest compliment from the most evil of person. In the Torah, we see that Bilham, when Bilam was wanting to curse the Jews, he ended up telling them a blessing. So let's see the curse that this man said about the Jews. And of course, we know who that man is, and that's Amalek. So here we go over here. No thanks for subscribing. I'm already subscribed. So are the Jews the moral compass? So I'm gonna see over here in Hitler's words. So this is from his book, excerpts from his book, where he basically wrote his book in jail in the early 30s, Mein Kampf, which I haven't read, but this is basically from the book. He says, conscience is a Jewish invention. It is a blemish like circumcision. He also said, if one little Jewish boy survived without any Jewish education, with no synagogue, no Hebrew school, Judaism is in his soul. Even if there has never been a synagogue or Jewish school or Old Testaments, the Jewish spirit would still exist and exert its influence. It has been there from the beginning, and there is no Jew, not a single one, who does not personify it. So I want you to just take it all in. What is Hitler really saying? He's basically saying that, and he continues on later in the book, but he's saying basically that let me stop the sharing of here, and I could send you all that also. He's basically saying, and he continues on in his book, he's saying the Aryan nation is like the lion of the jungle, but the Jews have put us into a cage of morality. Oh, we can't steal, we can't kill. Why not? We came with nothing in this world. We live with nothing. We're just animals. Therefore, we should have the right to do whatever we want. Because again, the mentality is survival of the fittest. We should go to the top. But the Jews have put us into this cage called morality, morals. And it doesn't matter if a Jew is religious or not religious, or he went to a cheder or yeshiva or Jewish school or synagogue. It does not matter. As long as they exist, they will corrupt us. And so he saw us as the real enemy. And he was right. Because if you are on this side, the side of evil, then you're going to look and say like, oh, how come people want to change, people want to be better? That's bad for us. We really need to get rid of them. And the only way is to kill them. And that's why he spent so much effort into killing Jews, because he realized that we stand for morals. And when you think about it, it's a tremendous a blessing in a way, because in a way it empowers us to really act as ambassadors. And of course, we're not the only one who has morals, Jews and non-Jews, but we always have to look at ourselves as the ambassadors to try to push humankind into a higher level of consciousness. So we want humankind to think more godly. So in a way, by being generous, or by being kind, or by being loving, by being tolerant, it might sound to somebody who is on the other side as we might be idiots, or we might be naive in some ways, but we think of it as we're getting closer to God, and we actually are acting out our purpose. So I want to share back the screen, because I want to go through a little bit Jewish persecution, because a lot of time we think of Jewish persecution as something, that's more recent, and we hear about Jewish persecution, but we don't actually no, not many people actually go through and read Jewish persecution. So this is about 1800 years ago. It starts 1800 years ago, and here we start 200 CE, expulsion, forced conversion in Italy, Jerusalem expulsion, book Persia, book burning. I'm gonna move through this, and you're gonna see how I'm just gonna slide as I go, and you guys could read it as we go, but you could see how much anti-Semitism there was. I want to share with you the time of King Solomon, the first Jewish temple. There was today there is, we say, approximately between 14 and 16 million Jews in the world. Very little. In the time of King Solomon, there were 11 million Jews. Now, if you look at the Chinese population at the same period, there were 35 million Chinese. And so when you see the numbers after so many wars that the Chinese have had, but you still see the numbers of amount of people that, over 1 billion people now, and you look at 15, 16 million of Jews, you wonder, where did all the Jews go? If there were 11 million, we should have been 250 million Jews, not 15 million. So where have they gone? And so each one of us here who's Jewish should think very, very strongly about their ancestors. Their ancestors, might have been here, might have been here. Let's continue over here. Ban on sea travel, Orléans massacre, that's in France, Rouen, Limoges, and Rome massacre. Here in northern France and Germany, 1/3 of the population massacred. So maybe there is all those other Jews who are not here had an ancestor that didn't survive, and somehow we had an ancestor that survived. He had a grandson or son that survived. It was the only one in his family, and on and on. Jerusalem, Jews burned alive. Ratisbon massacre, Kiev pogrom. This is 1140. Germany massacres, Rhine Valley, property confiscation. Lateran Council in 1215 decrees that Jews must wear the badge of shame. In all Christian countries, Jews are denied all public sector employment, that was a joke at the beginning, and are burdened with extra taxes. Toulouse, France, mass arrest. England, Jews forced to wear badge. Inquisition established, forced conversion, property confiscation, and you see it's getting worse and worse and worse. We continue on. You could see it's the label of counterfeit coin. All Jewish men, women, and children in England are imprisoned. Hundreds are hung. It's every year it results in the massacre of 100,000 Jews over a 6-month period, and we're not talking about the Holocaust. Here, Toulouse and Perpignan, 120 communities massacred, 5,000 Jews slaughtered, 12,000, 8,000. All these people could have had children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. We continue over here. It's just insane, the amount of public torture, expulsion, execution, mob attack, public torture, 1/3 of the Jewry slaughtered in where is that? In Poland. It's just terrible, terrible, terrible. Here in New York City in 1850, 500 people led by police attacked and wrecked Jewish synagogue. Area under expulsion, area under General Grant's jurisdictions in the United States. And you see how, and then of course the Holocaust at the bottom. And you see how much, throughout history, Jews have suffered. And you have to realize that as much as Jews have suffered, we also have been very, very successful. Meaning we have been successful at influencing the world to become better. Since the 10 Commandments, for example, I'll give you a quick example. 100 years ago was the first time that women in America were allowed to vote or to own land. 100 years, in 1920s, they were not allowed to own land, and only then they were allowed to own land. In the Torah, there is actually a discussion about that. And I'm not talking the Talmud later, I'm talking about a Torah which is over 3,000 years old. So there's a question when they come to the land of Israel, and the question is asked because each piece of the land is supposed to be divided among all the families. And when we say families, they were talking about the head of the family were in charge, and the head of the families were men. And so where did the women come in? The women didn't have, they had through their husband, but they didn't have directly access. So what happened is there's a family of 5 women, 5 sisters, who come to ask the question. And not only did they ask the question, they actually asked the question directly to Moses. So Moses is the king of Israel. And imagine 3,000 years ago, when everything was so barbaric, when we talk about not being able to vote in America, they're able to approach Moses. And what is the question? They say, we don't have a father, we don't have brothers, there's no man in our family. Why should we lose out? Why should our family lose out on inheriting the land of Israel? And the simplest answer would have been for Moses to say, well, you'll marry a man at some point, and then you'll have a piece in the land through your husband. But that was not the answer Moses gave them. Moses said, you know what? It's a good question. Can a woman own a piece of land or not? And so he said, I don't know the answer to this question, and I must ask God for the answer. And he returned to them and he said, you know what? God said that you are allowed to own land. And so that was the first case in history where we see Judaism allowing a woman 3,000 years ago to own a piece of land, which is really, really mind-blowing in some way, because again, 1920, women were not allowed to own land in America, not allowed to vote. So it's very, very mind-blowing. Another thing, regarding women's right, for example, is the idea that at the Jewish wedding, and this is something that has been established over 1,500 years ago, Jewish wedding, a man must give his wife a certificate, a document that gives her right to his properties and to his possessions if there was something to happen to him, if they were to divorce, or it was basically the first document for women's rights in history, where basically a woman had right to a man's property before any creditor, before anyone else, before even other people that he would decide to inherit outside of his family. So we see that Judaism has always tried to push the envelope in terms of rights, meaning it's not about even right, it's about responsibility. We have to behave as good human beings. We have to try to elevate everyone to connect to God. And in order to do this, we are told that it's not enough to just be a good person. Being a good person, everyone should be a good person. But we also have to connect to God by being a holy person. And so how does one become a holy person? That's doing mitzvot, commandments that are not about being a good person. It's about celebrating Shabbat together, making time away 24 hours where you basically says, I'm not going to listen to anyone else's influence. I'm actually going to be concentrating on the people I love, people I want to spend time with. I'm going to shut out my phone, the TV, everything, and I'm going to spend time and be present in the moment with my family, with my friends, with really people I actually want to hear from. I don't want to hear from the news. I don't want to hear from the world. I don't want to hear from this thing. I don't want to pretend. I just want to be me, and I want to connect. And God is telling us that's being holy. Eating kosher, putting on tefillin, the mind and the heart, all these things, lighting the Shabbat candles, lighting the world, all these things are things we can do in order so that we could bring inspiration to others to be good people. So in a way, in Judaism, that's how we see the world. We see that by being Jewish, we're able to continue on to inspire, in a way, to create an energy, to create almost like an aura around us where we're able to go on and inspire. And so that's kind of like the class. I could always continue, but maybe everybody has some questions or some comments. Of course, there's always a lot more we can go into.
Thank you, Rabbi, for a beautiful lecture. So we ask the participants if anyone has any question to please unmute yourself, and you're welcome to ask your question.
So if nobody has a question, I have a question for you guys. Oh, no, go ahead. Okay, if you have a question, go ahead.
Hello, Rabbi. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you.
Let me put my camera on. Hello, Rabbi.
All right. Alan?
Yes, exactly.
Very nice.
Rabbi, I have an observation rather than a question to see if you agree with me. But it seems to me that some of our worst enemies have actually been individuals or groups that in the beginning they claim to love us, and then when we don't actually follow their own ideologies or the way they want to change the Torah, then we actually become the subject of their hatred. And we have examples in Christianity, for instance, a lot of them. I had, in fact, a professor who was a great admirer of Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
And she had never, ever heard of the fact of how he was a great admirer of the Jews, and then he persecuted the Jewish nation. And the same thing with Muhammad. In the beginning, there was a close connection. And then when we don't follow, then that causes essentially a reaction of hatred. And I think that besides the fact of there being anti-Semitism per se in the world because of whatever reason it might be, there is also this part that it will never cease because we always stay true to the Torah. And in every generation that happens. And that, I think, is the greatest challenge that we have, because sometimes some of our brethren, and as a Faradim, we know this as well very well, that sometimes part of our community tries to adapt in order to be able to escape, and then they suffer, the consequences, for instance, with the Inquisition. And at the same time, holding steadfast is what we are required to do, despite the love, despite the hatred of the other nations of the world.
Yes, a very, very good point. Martin Luther was one of them, as you said, and many others. And, it's not always the case, but you are correct that a lot of time it is the case. And the reason is like this, at least in my opinion, when someone is trying to teach, a good teacher is somebody who's trying to lift you up and grow with you, not give you so much at once, but somebody who's going to be lifting you up at your own level. And then when you go up to the next level, you'll say, hey, try to go here and try to go here. So there is a level of patience and love. A lot of time, those tyrants, those dictators are basically not there to help anyone but themselves. And so when it becomes apparent that we are not going to be going along any of the programs or any of their ideology, then automatically they realize that we're an enemy, that we're not there to help them. Because ultimately, when somebody like that, somebody selfish, is only looking for, how can this group, help me? How can this ideology help me become more powerful or more popular, etc. So, and this is, for example, when you look at Moses, Moses never criticized the Jews. The only time he criticized the Jews is right before he died. And the reason he says is that he's only criticizing them now because he knows they won't be embarrassed, because he's going to be gone very soon. And so he wanted them to take lesson into what he was going to tell them. And what he was going to tell them was a little bit of harsh words, but at the same time, it was also out of love. So it's like a parent who basically, doesn't trying to lift up their kids slowly and make them grow. But at the end, sometimes there's also a little bit of tough love. But on the other side, when you look at what you brought up, the people who basically pretended to love us, pretended to be on our side, and then turned against us, he basically showed their true color to begin with. What they wanted to do was only to make themselves more powerful, and they were selfish. And again, that's the same mentality that we're talking about. Is it survival of the fittest, or is it meaning and purpose? The idea at Chabad that we have is we love and care for each one of the people who come through our doors, and we really do. And we don't pretend or have a plan or this or that. It's just come in and grow at your own time. You like this, then come to this. You like making challah? Fariba joined us one time for the challah making. You want to make challah, you want to make this, and we only focus on the positive and the love. And slowly people go up on their own. And then at sometimes people even get better than us. They go to other communities and they become more religious and they become more successful and we're happy for them. We're not trying to take and to this and to take credit no, it's about, we want people to grow and to become better. And when we do this, then we know we've done what we're supposed to in this world. So really, it's always that way you have to think. And a lot of time, it's very hard. We've heard many times people, even people are very religious telling us, why do you bring people who are not religious in the Chabad house? Why do you let, all the students come here? They don't keep kosher, they don't keep Shabbat, they don't keep anything, but they're here. And I was like, okay, keep going. That sounds amazing. They don't keep kosher or Shabbat, but here they are celebrating. And it's a different outlook. We here as brothers and sisters, we all have defect, we all aren't perfect, and we all have to have that mindset that we're here to help each other make a difference in the world. Sorry if it's a long answer, but that's the question for Rabbi. Anybody else have any questions? Or why do you think this is happening? What do you think this is happening in America or around the world? And what should be the response, you think, as a Jew?
Actually, Rabbi, I have one question related to what you said at the beginning, like the incident that happened with you and your son as you're walking to the synagogue. I know that you said we have to be kind, we have to not to engage to the violence or responding to them. But in another way, if we do not respond, doesn't that empower those people?
Yes, yes, and my intention is not to say we shouldn't respond. What my intention was, let's not give them what they want. Meaning they want us to react and to be upset because they drove away. There was nothing to do really. And when somebody's truly hateful like that, if we have a chance to respond, we should, and we should be strong. I remember the first time when I was a kid and I saw a Jewish boy getting beat up, and there was 5 people beating him up. I felt like the only thing to do was to go and help him, and I did, and I also got punched in the face and everything else. But at least it'll give them, something to think, because whatever, one of them ended up not so good. So at least maybe next time, they wouldn't attack other, or they would think twice, maybe. And we should stand up for ourselves. We shouldn't just run away and hide and be scared and things like that. We should stand up for ourselves and be strong. At the same time, I believe that we shouldn't really give them the satisfaction of becoming upset. So meaning you could act, but also you shouldn't act out of emotion. You should not give, like, one of the things that they want is they want to rile us up and to make us feel bad. So I'm not going to give them that satisfaction, because if not, they win. So the worst thing you can do is to ignore them sometime, especially when they run away and there's nothing to do. Because that's the one thing is they want to have a good laugh, and if they can't laugh, then they feel stupid a little bit.
Rabbi, this is Mike Shirazi, and I do have a comment to make and try to answer your question. The comment that I want to make is that the 5 sisters that went to Moshe ben Amram, to Moses, they went to get their heritage. They were not trying to get any voting right or anything like that. That's my comment. Now, as far as answering you, what we should be doing is, I believe we have to educate them and also stand in front of them. By educating them, I mean, look at the story of what happened a couple of days ago concerning Ben & Jerry ice cream. At the beginning, they were against Israel, and they took side with Palestinian because of Linda Sarsour. But
Yeah.
they were told, they were educated, and they completely reversed their position. They don't sell any more Ben & Jerry ice cream to the Palestinian. On the other hand, they take care of the Israeli side. From my own personal experience, I used to go to a Jewish school, and on the way back home, every single day, bunch of Muslim people targeted us and beat the hell out of us, took our pen, pencil, our book, notebook, and so on. But we decided to become a group, and on the way go home, stand in front of them and fight with them. Sometimes we came home with a bloody nose or broken head, but we tried to defend.
Where was that?
In Iran.
Yeah.
Yeah, that of course goes many years ago. And we succeeded. By coming home, They didn't try to beat us anymore, and that's what we should do. Try to educate them and confront them. I
Yes.
think right now there should be a group from America who can go and stand with Black Lives Matter people and educate them. They are not educated about Jewish religion, and automatically they listen to the Muslim because Muhammad, Prophet Muhammad, had black people and mentioned in the Quran. So we have to educate them.
So yeah, I mean, 100% agree with most of what you said about education. One of the things that I suggest students when there was this kind of thing going on in Israel was a lot of time you can educate certain people, and certain people are just a lost case, meaning they just want to hate. But a lot of time, what you can do is you can post on your social media, and everyone can do this, and saying, what's happening in Israel is an issue that's very dear to my heart. And it's something that I am very involved with emotionally, personally. I have family, I have friends, and everything else. Please, if you want to hear my side of what's happening, please reach out to me. I'd love to hear and feel your support. And a lot of time, people will get a lot of messages of people expressing their concern, or people are confused. They read a little bit in the news, and this is an opportunity for them to learn, because at the end of the day, the people we can change and we can influence are those who really don't know. And so yes, in the Black Lives Matter or other movements, there is some people who are just ignorant, like you were saying with the Ben and Jerry. People are ignorant and they just don't know, and they have good intention, um, but some of them don't. And most people out there don't have a clue really of what's right and what's wrong. So, for example, one of the things that we're doing with San Diego State is creating like a Jewish American Heritage Day on campus, where students that are Jewish can celebrate openly being Jewish. There's many things that we're going to be doing with the university, including like an education for professors and staff and incoming students about what is considered anti-Semitism. Uh, does anti-Semitism exist? What is Jewish? So a lot of things for all the freshmen, all the professors, to get an education about that, because there's a lot of anti-Semitism happening in classes also. But one of the things that we're working through, this task force that we've created, is being anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, and a lot of people hide behind the anti-Israel because they're anti-Semitic. A lot of people, and it's the rights of people to be anti-Israel, if they want to, from a political, or they have a right to their own opinion. But a lot of time it's actually people who hate Jews who use Israel to attack Jews and Judaism. And so this is really wrong. And how do you define basically what is anti-Semitic when criticizing Israel, and what is actually a political opinion? And this is where a lot of people, my belief about this, for example, we've had similar posting during the Israel, attacks that's happened against Israel, and we've seen, the anti-Semitic posts that came up criticizing Israel, but also saying the world doesn't need the Jews. For example, look at what Israel is doing. The world doesn't need the Jews. So automatically, and I think people are really, really hateful. They can't help themselves. They hate Jews so much that when they talk about Israel, they're gonna blurt something out about Jews. And so a lot of time, they will turn themselves in. The students who posted with his name, tagged San Diego State. It's unbelievable, what how crazy people are. They just turn themselves in, and or like those students who posted themselves on Instagram, and they brag about how they came to steal stuff from the Chabad house. So I believe a lot of time, they're so obsessed with their hatred that they will cross the line from anti-Israel to anti-Jews. But a lot of time it's hard to identify it.
Yes, I agree with you. You know, if we refer to last week parasha, in there specifically, Moses tell to the children of Israel, when you are going to promised land, you are going to pass by Seir. It is given to the children of Esau. So do not fight with them and pass by them. So we, our religious people should bring that up and say, look, in there, Hashem says, the people of Seir are your brother, your brethren. Don't fight with them. If they bring that up and tell the Palestinian or the Muslim people, look, the word of Hashem is that you and us, we are brother. We are not against you. We are sharing the same grandfather. So therefore, back up and
Well,
this plan.
technically Seir is Esav, which is America, and a lot of people say, but you're right about Ishmael being also family, and you have a lot of Torah knowledge, by the way. That's very impressive. So I don't know if he's part of the community, but Baruch Hashem, it's nice to have somebody that knows so much Torah. Yeah. I mean, look, the only thing we want is we don't want anything but peace, Mashiach, as we say. We want the whole world to be at peace, not just us. Um, and there is nothing else that we really want. And I always tell people, I say, if I ever saw a group of Jews beating up on Muslim kids because he's Muslim and because they want to, be racist, then I'm gonna go and defend that little boy, because it's not about us against them, like you're saying. It's about doing what's right, and that doesn't matter what. But at the same time, also, as you said, we should stand up strong. And so in our synagogue, Baruch Hashem, we have a very, very strong security, I guess, protocols, or whatever you want to call that. And we've taken it very, very seriously since what happened in Poway, in the Chabad house nearby over here. And we're not going to be, I remember talking to a lot of different leaders, rabbis included, and a lot of people say they don't believe in armed force in the synagogue or the churches. And that's a very big question in America. And I'm French, so I never had this issue, or even ever got close to weapons and things like that. And the answer was, we don't believe in it because politically it will offend a lot of the members, and we don't believe in uniform because the police is, this was during the times. And I was like, this is not about a political issue. This is about the safety, and this is about the same way we have officers in the bank protecting money. We should have officers protecting, our children and things like that. So it's a lot of time, we need to have common sense and not think of it in terms of politics. We need to be safe. We need to protect each other. We need to be strong, but we also must think with a clear head. This is not a war. This is a slow process where we're going to win eventually, because righteousness, goodness always prevail. But at the same time, we also need to do our part to influence the world around us. We really need to really focus on what can we do as individuals now. If we are alive today, it means God has a mission for us to change the world. We must embrace that mission. And as I said before, a Jewish person must do Jewish things. We must embrace who we are, because look at what Hitler says. It doesn't matter if we went to Jewish school or no Jewish school. A Jew is a Jew is a Jew. And I remember actually when one Hanukkah, we were passing out menorahs in downtown San Diego. And we were asking people, are you Jewish? Do you want a menorah? And a couple, one guy and a girl, came by, and the guy says, yes, I'm Jewish. And he's like, can I have a menorah? I was like, yeah, sure. And the girl looked at him and she said, you're Jewish? And she started arguing with him. And she says, I never knew you were Jewish. Like, I can't stand Jews. And she got really mad at him. And it was like, it doesn't matter if you're religious or not, it will come up at some point. It was just such a crazy story that it just happened because we gave a menorah. And who knows if, I mean, they probably ended up that they're probably not together because of that. And you don't know what can happen, but we have to live proudly. We can't go hide. We must have a yarmulke or a Star David, a pin or something. And sometimes it's hard to do that publicly, but in a way, when people know we're Jewish and we're proud of it, then they are able to approach us and ask us questions. And that's what we want. We want to be there to answer questions. Anybody else has any questions or comments? I see Mike Kugler over here, one of our alumni also.
Rabbi, I have a question.
Yes.
So you said that in King Solomon's day, there were 11 million Jews, and you said
Yes.
now there are 14 million Jews. So as you know, the Pew report just came out and said that millennial Jews are not really interested in Israel. They're not very religious. So, I mean, I guess part of me thinks, well, this has always been the case. There have been lots of opportunities for Jews to become non-Jewish. And, I think Hashem is going to keep a remnant of the Jews forever, but I don't know. What do you think?
So
I guess I'm not too worried because I think it's always been this way.
So I'll tell you this. Yeah, the Pew report in 2013 came out and said that Judaism is regressing, meaning less people are getting involved and are identifying less with Israel and with being Jewish. You see, in the last 100 years, we've had the Jewish movement as a whole has banked on two things to get Jews connected: Israel and the Holocaust. And fortunately, not many Holocaust survivors are still here. So it's very, very hard to have the same impact, to have the same message when we rely on videos and things like that. And also Israel, it's became like the cool thing to be anti-Israel. And a lot of young Jews are, swimming along, those interesting group on campus. And a lot of those groups are anti-Israel. And so when they're around their friends and they're hearing all this anti-Israel propaganda and all this criticism, then they don't really connect with Israel and don't want anything to do with it, and they don't support it. And so on one hand, if that's all we have, the Holocaust and Israel, and those two things are either disappearing or are becoming uncool, then young Jews are not really connecting. And they're not connecting with Judaism. On our other hand, in Chabad, we have seen more Jews becoming involved. You see, one of the things about this generation is that it's not about, I feel they're even better than the generation before, even more potential than the generation before, because this generation really just want to be good people. They want to volunteer. There's this famous thing, they want to have an impact, but they don't want to do anything. They love, but they don't share it or whatever. This generation is maybe not as tough, as strong as the previous generation because they haven't gone through so much hardship. But one thing that they want is they want the world to be better. They want to volunteer, they want to help, they want to contribute, they want to they want to be part of this movement that's going to change the world, whatever that means. And the truth is, if we, the Jewish leaders, are understanding that that's what they want and can find a way to empower them, but under the guidance of the Torah and mitzvot and Judaism, that we teach them that being Jewish is being a light to continue to like the whole conversation we've had, to continue to influence by being more Jewish and everything else. That when they tap into that, they realize how important it is and that it enables them to change the world. Then they want to be a part of it. And especially when you just make it where it's not an organization where there's membership, where there's this, where there's that, where it's so formal. They don't want formal, they want grassroots. And so we've seen, I don't know if Ashley's still on there, but we've, thank God, like so many of students are participating. And maybe they don't say they're Chabad or they're Orthodox or they're this. They say they're Jewish and they're proud of it and they enjoy celebrating with their friends. And you know what? That's all that matters. It doesn't matter that they say they're conservative or Reform or Chabad or Orthodox or this or that. We want them to say they're Jewish. You anti-Israel? Okay, just come for Shabbos dinner. Eat some hummus. Eating hummus doesn't mean you're going to be pro-Israel. Just celebrate with your friend. Then, when they see that they're loved, and they see that they're cared for, then they're open to learn. They're open to hear you. And so really, yeah, it is a concern. And we do have to do whatever we can to make them feel as part of the family, not push them away. And a lot of time it's very, very hard not to push them away, because when a parent has a son or a daughter that leaves Judaism or doesn't follow, it's natural to just be angry and upset. How can you do this? And it's the same thing with those young people. We can't be angry and upset. We have to educate them. We have to love them. We have to bring them back. And there's so many stories I could share with you of things that happen here on campus, how people changed. I'll tell you one quick story. We had two girls coming from Israel. They grew up in a very, very, very Orthodox environment in Israel, and they were like those areas, the Hasidic area in Mea Shaharim, were very judgmental and everything else, and they weren't so religious at that time when they came to us. And the way they came to us, I had just flown back from Israel. It was a Thursday night. I got here at 2 a.m. at home. Don't ask me why, but I was supposed to fly out again the next week to Israel, and I had a wedding in New York that weekend. And this was Friday morning. At 6 a.m. I wake up, and they call in. They say, "Do you have a place? We're looking for a place for Shabbat." And I was like so exhausted. We had a family staying with us. We had 40 students coming to our house. It was really tiring. But I say, you know what? Let me ask my wife. And my wife said, "We'll put some air mattress and we'll figure it out." So an hour before Shabbat, they're not coming yet. So I call them and they say like, "Oh yeah, okay, we'll come." So they came and they were so shocked after Friday night. They said, "What? People are coming to your house that are not religious? How is that possible?" And we're like, "What do you mean? You don't know what Chabad is? Like, we always are, like, it's not about religious and not religious. People come because they want to celebrate. They're Jewish. They want to connect." And the next day, we had a class, and in the afternoon, they shared with us something incredible. They said, "We have to tell you the truth. When we came to your house, it was a test." So I say, "What do you mean a test?" He says, "Well, our parents are very anti-Chabad because they say Chabad accept every kind of Jew, and they hated Chabad because they were super Orthodox, and they say how dare they bring people who are not religious into the synagogue." Okay, so they say, whatever you do, if you come to America, don't go to Chabad. And they said this was going to be our last Shabbat ever. We were not going to have Shabbat anymore after this. And I was shocked. I was like, why? They say, because we hate religion. We hate Judaism. We hate everything about it. It's always judgmental. There's no love of here. And one of them started sharing with us. She said that in the past few months, they were traveling America, and they've been stopping in churches along the way because they love the singing over there. And they felt it's the only place they feel loved. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. And they said they decided the next Sunday, right after Shabbat, they decided that they were going to go to the priest in San Diego and do the conversion. And I was just blown away by what they're saying. And they say, when we called you, we tested you because we heard Chabad is open and they always welcome people. And our parents says, don't go to Chabad. So we decided if our last Shabbat, we're going to try Chabad. And so they called us, and I was so exhausted and I was so tired. And I really wanted to tell them, here's a number to another rabbi. Why don't you call him? And they say, and I told them that, they say, if you had sent us to the other rabbi, we probably would have never gone. We probably would not have even gone to you if you didn't call us before Shabbat, an hour before. We probably would have just stayed somewhere else. And they say, but now we saw how much non-religious people and how much love you have for them and how everybody's so comfortable. They say, this is the place we want to be. And we've been in touch since. They decided not to do the conversion. And they decided, to basically stop along the Chabad houses. And now they're still Jewish, thank God. And, it just shows you, like, sometimes there's opportunity that are in front of you and you could change someone's life or you could miss out on it. And thank God, we were lucky to not miss out. And, somebody could have said, their viewpoint was, oh, Chabad is the worst. We should never go there, because that's what they were taught by their parents. And thank God I didn't follow that advice, because you know what it would have been? It would have been that they would have converted to something else. And on another hand, if we didn't create this atmosphere in our house, then it would have changed them. So we always have to think that, you know, with love you could achieve a lot more. And we should never really steer away from our values. We should always be who we are, but at the same time we should always remember that you know, we can't judge others. We have to love them and help them grow at their own pace, and then miracles will truly happen.
Well, Rabbi, I want to thank you so much for such a wonderful lecture. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule from your family to be with us. We really appreciate it. And we hope that we can have you again sometime in the future.
Anytime, please let me know. Anytime, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, and I hope we all stay safe, and again, we all find our purpose and act on it and look for opportunities every day. And l'chaim.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you.
Yes, attendance.